The bigger news, I think, though, is the first developer blog, which came through delightfully early, surprisingly early, I guess. But again, we did get some news on the expansion teams last year around about this time. I had forgotten about that. But we got a developer blog on MyLEAGUE and MyGM, Ben, and it's sounding pretty good.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of new implementations and improvements and stuff like that. It's interesting direction in terms that it has like a story mode to it. So it's sort of like a hybrid between MyLEAGUE and MyCareer, but sort of more the off-court sort of like, well, post-retirement sort of thing, I guess, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So MyGM, which is now MyGM The Next Chapter, has a story similar to MyCareer, and we're still going to have control over the gameplay and the team building functionality, the features, all that kind of stuff. And there's going to be some customization options, not as much as MyLEAGUE, but a little bit more than previous years. But as you said, the story kind of in the background, and you're a former player basically who got injured, and now you've actually made the transition to the front office. So yeah, that is an interesting idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I was quite surprised by that. Some of the actual feature implementations, such as when you rebrand, create your sort of own team and stuff like that, and how you can actually, instead of just being like a home and away jersey, they've implemented a third one, so you could use that as essentially as alternative or as a retro jersey.
Yep.
So that's cool addition, and that's something that I hope can be also implemented in Pro-Am as well.
Of course, absolutely. Just before we move on from MyGM specifically, are you disappointed at all, or excited about the story, or because when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, story really, but then when I thought about it, well, first of all, I thought, well, there's always MyLEAGUE if you don't like MyGM, and MyLEAGUE's kind of more my speed anyway. But hearing about the story, like, okay, it doesn't sound like it's going to be too intrusive, and hopefully that's the same for MyCareer again, because they really did a good job with that in 2K17. So the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, that's an interesting thing, and it actually separates MyLEAGUE and MyGM a bit more, and gives her a good reason for having both modes in the game. So, in fact, I'd love to see them do the same approach, as I've said before, with MyCareer, so that you can have just the flat-out, straight sandbox career mode and the story-driven mode as well. So I'd love to see them do it both ways, with both the franchise and career mode.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. For me, yeah, I'm kind of excited, like, again, but because, with the storyline in MyCareer, it still doesn't feel like totally as RPG sort of your own sort of story as much as it had sort of made out to be and all that stuff. Again, it's that sort of hesitation. It's like, okay, how restrictive in terms of things? So it's that, again, element of wait and see, and then I guess find out sort of stuff. How different will a lot of the scenarios be for people who post and their stories and stuff online, whether it be on the NLSC forums or on OS or any other sites and that.
YouTubers and such, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So, it just sort of be how free is it in terms of things to really tell your own story within it. So that's to me is the only caution in, I suppose, to it.
Yeah, I mean that's my concern as well, that it's going to be a bit too restrictive or whatever. But we still have, apparently we'll have control again over the games and all the team building features. So it does sound like it's going to be in the background, and there's the way it's going to play out. They talking about not giving away spoilers, so I guess there's hopefully some branching options, or at the very least there's going to be an engaging story. So I guess we'll see. But again, we've still got MyLEAGUE, which is still retaining its the large suite of customization features and the familiar sandbox approach, as I put it in the news post. So we have that alternative. And that's again why I love to see that with MyCareer as well, having those alternatives, so that you're not locked into that story and have to play through it again if you start a new MyCareer. That's a really big thing with MyCareer.
Yeah, and for me, another thing that sort of stood out, the whole All-Star game host element to it, where and how even you can actually design the court, an All-Star game court that won't affect your actual regular team, like regular season court and all that stuff. That's really cool implementation.
Its own logos, and it's
Yeah, and the sort of engine stuff that in-engine stuff that determines the viability of which team gets what and how
Yep.
regular, or which team gets to host it. Again, hope that I think from memory it says it works in other modes as well. So that'll be kind of cool, especially for those who do like in my career that goes for a few years.
Because that was always the thing when you go a few years uh, in a franchise or career mode, then it gets very generic.
Yeah,
Or you're repeating it's the same. Like you say, like last year you end up playing on the 2017 court or a generic court in the future years. So and it kind of breaks that immersion there. So that's a really good feature. Yeah, you mentioned the alternate jerseys for rebranding, which is great, and obviously hope that is in 2K Pro Am as you said. But they've also been enhanced with the ability to redesign a team's court without having to redesign the whole arena. So if you just want to do the floor, not the whole
yeah,
arena, that's really good.
yeah. That was another positive thing in terms of that. Yeah, so that was really cool. I think I had something and then I just forgot it.
And while you think of it, I'll also mention that relocation and rebranding options are also available in MyLEAGUE Online, which is cool. It still sounds like MyLEAGUE Online is going to be that the fantasy approach, which I know not everyone's a fan of. We were a bit disappointed by that last year, but for people who do like MyLEAGUE Online, at least you've got a bit more content with the relocation and rebranding, so that's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just going down the list here. Jump in whenever you remember what it was before I interrupted you so rudely. The new collective bargaining agreement has been accurately reflected. So there's going to be aspects like the Supermax contracts, updated salary figures, and stretch provisions, two-way contracts with the G League integration, which is now there. There's no G League games to be played, but players can be sent there, and that helps develop them if they're not getting a lot of playing time. So the people have been asking for that for years. So the G League, of course, formerly the D League. So that's great to see. Hardship exception, new rule changes such as the number of timeouts. Free agent moratorium is in the game, so you can make binding verbal agreements during the moratorium and then sign. So maybe
there's a 3-day one in this one as well. So
yeah. So it's basically really reflecting what happens with the off season and authenticity, which is something that Eric Benish did say in the developer blog. That again, that is the focus of the franchise modes. International draftees can remain overseas, and you find out how long they're going to stay there. Rights to players can be drafted instead of just immediately being signed to your team. Draft class generation being improved, the logic for that. And of course, custom draft classes are still there, I would imagine, as well. Yeah.
I got one for birthday boy Leo, one that he would really love. The new analytics tool.
Oh, yes. We know Leo
he's
loves his stats.
Yep. So, yeah, better functionality and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Happy birthday, Leo, for that one. It's
yeah. And this also works in better functionality when searching for community creations. So, if you're building, again, for like Pro-Am stuff, or I guess MyLEAGUE and MyGM stuff, if there's like a content creator that you like who does like certain logos or, jersey creation type stuff, you can find their stuff more easily as opposed to the old way.
Yep.
In terms where you have to like continually search through all these other files and that from other people at the same time. So
very welcome.
Yep.
And also, there's been some improvements, I guess, we've touched on roster editing as well, or player customization. Players actually going to have attributes to determine how frequently they wear types of accessories.
That was the one that I was thinking.
Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. And that's pretty cool because sometimes, you do see players will wear headbands some games, and other times they don't. So there's these little features, and I know that Leftos and John Jasmine, they talked about this idea before Leftos went to 2K, but they were going to try and find a way to implement it through a tool to do things like they've done in MyGM and MyLEAGUE, where players will start wearing an accessory like a knee brace after an injury, for example. That's obviously something that's already been implemented, but to take that a step further and actually say, well, like Rondo, for example, wearing a headband some games and not others. That's actually going to be reflected now. That's it's a little detail, but it's really cool on the whole authenticity front and making it seem like a very live experience.
Yeah. The other thing I want to know is, would that also apply to even footwear as well? Because there'll be some players, yes, they might be signed or sort of like to a brand in that, but they might say, for instance, like with Jordan brand and Nike, they can, well, if they're signed to Nike, they can wear Nike, Converse, and Jordan brand.
Right.
Because that fits all under one umbrella company and all that stuff. So, they might sort of rotate in that, or they might just be regarded as a sneaker free agent where their contract may have run up, or sort of in the process of who they're going to sign with and all that stuff, and they just might in between negotiations might wear different brands and all that stuff. There was a period where Kobe did it after his contract with Adidas was terminated. Gilbert Arenas did it for a while. Nick Young did it for a while, and looks like Lonzo Ball might even do it a little bit.
I'm just looking at the full developer blog, because we've been going off my summary, or I've been going off my summary anyway.
I remember reading through it and didn't specify in regards to shoes and that. That was something.
It says
something that was like, I wonder if they've even thought of that element yet.
It says all 17 accessory slots, so I'm trying to remember how many kind of slots you would have. So headband, like bicep, two bicep, 2 elbow, 2 wrist, or forearm. Yeah, we'd have to go through. 17 may not include shoes. I'm just thinking.
Because even like in some of the options for like, and you go to like my career aspect, it's like gear and stuff like that, and shoes is a separate one, like Pro-Am gear.
Yeah.
And then Pro-Am shoes.
That's a good point. And of course, this will be used, as you said, in my career and play now, and with the roster updates as well. So it's going to be something that's being kept up to date. So if that's in my career, I guess that means we can specify it ourselves for our player if we want to wear a headband sometimes, or do we? Yep. Is that? I suppose we got complete control over that anyway. But if we could automate it, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
to say sometimes wear a headband or not.
I hope too. Like one thing, if they did implement with a bit more control in my career, where you could actually change it, like you can do in other modes, like MyLEAGUE MyGM, where you could actually change what the other people wear in that sort of thing, in terms of shoes and stuff. Especially when you go later, like post your first season, season 2 and 3, you might want to sort of something a little bit visually different.
Definitely.
So yeah.
I'm just seeing if there's anything else.
And given to, like, if you start your dynasty or your my career right at the beginning of the season, and when they add in new content, like new shoes later on and all that stuff, you can't equip them unless you basically kind of start over, I guess. And it's like, do you really want to potentially, like, 2-3 months down the track change?
I thought that was going to be a thing where more content could be added to a My Career and My League and My GM after it started. I think that's going to be a big thing moving forward, to be able to add that new content in. They did say last year that it was, so maybe they've rewritten that back end to be able to do that. And if so, that'd be great, obviously, because as you say, to have to start again 2 or 3 months in when you get this cool new content, it's like back in the day when you'd get a roster update and like, I'm already halfway through a dynasty or association, and you're like, no, that is annoying. So might need to check into that if we can scout out our old friend Leftos and see if we can get some clarification on that maybe. Just looking down and seeing if there's anything else that we haven't really... on the player editing, the jump shot creator is going to be used for any player, not just the not just your My Player in My Career, and of course the other connected modes. So more editing functionality there. Quick editing has been expanded as well. So again, for all the people making roster updates and custom rosters, fantastic. And here's a big one: created players can be added to a MyLEAGUE game already in progress. So obviously that tech is there, I guess. So maybe we can start adding that content too. But that's great that if you do create a player for a custom roster, that you can add them to a MyLEAGUE game that's in progress. Which again, as we just said, back in the day when you get a roster update through when you've already started your franchise game, which be it live or 2K. You're like, that player's not in my game. I guess I either have to start again or live with it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Again, just sort of really starting to expand on the stuff that definitely helps later on down in the game. Like when, again, like as we were saying, especially say around mid-season trades and stuff like that. So, and when new content's added in. So hopefully all that stuff that we sort of mentioned in the last few minutes, and that it has sort of comes into play in that sort of thing as well. So fingers crossed.
And the final thing that I think we've mentioned everything in my quick rundown that I did on the main page. Of course, check out the full blog for all the exciting details. It's impossible to summarize that in just a few paragraphs. But the last thing that I made sure to note was that the ability to practice plays is back. So that's pretty cool too, being able to practice the play calling system and running the plays with the team, especially after making a few trades and changing up your playbook.
Yeah, for sure. It's sort of something that I obviously implemented with my career in that. But hopefully, again, more expanded. Also being able to send players to the G League and things like that as well. If we didn't mention already, it's not playable. The G.
Yeah,
I
did cover that. Yeah, but yeah,
yep,
I mean
okay.
that is great that they've done that as well, because that's been on the wish list for years. Ever since the D League was dropped from association mode, it hasn't made it back into MyLEAGUE or MyGM. So now that it has a presence as the G League, I still feel that's a little bit, because it's the Gatorade League now as well. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sort of the whole Kia halftime show, isn't it? The Kia halftime show is sponsored by Kia. Kia, make sure it's a Kia. It's, it's sort of advertising the jerseys, advertising everywhere. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. That's me being a grumpy old man. The fact that we have the development league, whatever you want to call it these days, in the game to be able to develop players, and it's not just a way to stash players. That if you have players that aren't getting a lot of playing time, that it can help develop them. As in real life, really good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So you look at this, and Eric Benish said that the whole aim is to make sure that the franchise mode is not neglected, that it's the best experience possible. Put a comment that I guess is kind of a swipe at other games, specifically NBA Live, I suppose, about what they do with their franchise modes. Normally I'd be kind of against that, but I really am disappointed that Live hasn't really upped Dynasty mode since it came back. So it's, whereas 2K has done this fantastic stuff with MyLEAGUE and MyGM, so you know what? This is a case where they can certainly thump their chest, and I think other companies, well, EA, I guess, should be doing a better job with Live's Dynasty mode. So, just seeing what the team has done, obviously our good friend Leftos being heavily involved with that. Eric, I'm just scrolling down to get the names, obviously, and he points out the other people that are heavily involved with that, including, of course, our good friend Leftos. It's just really great to see as a long-time franchise gamer. I haven't spent as much time with franchise modes as I'd like the last few years. I've been into 2K Pro-Am and my career and my team. I'll be playing that in 2K18, of course, but I really do think it's time for me to start that MyLEAGUE game early when I get the game, especially if I can update the rosters somewhat, and get back into it, because it's really sounding like this year, even more than last year, is just a fantastic effort has gone into franchise modes, and it's great to see in here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of echo something that you sort of, well, get 2 cents on something you said in regards to the to that little statement that was made at the end of that blog. I did read that, and yeah, obviously I knew where it was going, directed at. I guess I came up with like a little analogy just before we actually started recording. Actually, just as I think I was pouring my drink just before we started, was you could probably, with EA, I guess we consider it they're probably being like the Philadelphia 76ers at the moment. Trusting the process that they're building that foundation first.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
So that was my little analogy. I think right now, if we were to compare them, I think in terms of where they might be at is, well, just before this game releases and that. So prior to this previous season and that, I'd say we're potentially at where they've got Simmons, they've got, they've just drafted, who they've needed to and that. So hopefully now that the foundation's there, the games, we see when the game comes out, this will be the start of this season in a sense. So next year,
so
give them more time to develop and all that, the skills to develop, so that the mode can now
Yep.
then develop in that. So that's my
So,
my little
yeah, no,
little-
I like the analogy. So would you say that with live, it's kind of like they put the pieces in place, and now they're waiting to see how Simmons and Fultz play, whereas the Warriors, whereas NBA 2K has been able to be the Warriors adding Kevin Durant.
yeah. I think that's a very fair comparison and analogy in this sense, and I think results will show for both games in terms of
Oh, yeah.
things
Future
in
is
terms.
bright. Future is bright.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we're going to walk away from. Doesn't look like we're going to walk away from both games disappointed. Like we just like maybe say as disappointing as last season was in terms of things and how sort of predictable it was and all that. So, uh, um, I think cautiously, a very optimistic year ahead for basketball video games.
Absolutely, and I do hope, of course, that Live does continue to build on the modes. I know people say gameplay is paramount. It is, but you do need that replay value that the modes provide. And with Live sounding like it's made such strides with the gameplay, according to everyone who's played it, then sort of does come down to the modes. But that has to come in time. And as you said, when one team is rebuilding as the 76ers and the other is on top of the league as the Warriors, there are difficult comparisons to make. But good news for hopefully for Live, obviously, but certainly for now for franchise gamers for 2K18, it's looking really positive. And yeah, let's see what the other modes have brought to the table. My team, my career, and all that. So hopefully they'll be just as impressive.